So I did a video on the seal of Providence, Rhode Island, and it says founded 1636, incorporated 1836, and in the video I was talking about how, you know, the Indigenous Divina, they wanted to come here, force Christianity on us, rename our land, and conquer us, right? So the history of Rhode Island, it says Roger Williams, he was kicked from Massachusetts when he was really sent on a mission, because he's a clergyman. If you look up, you can even go into just Google his name and it'll tell you he was a clergyman. He grew up in the faith, you see what I'm saying? And then he founded the first Baptist church right in Providence, well, the Providence colony. And I talked about how in the Indigenous Divina, the whole mission was to do that. And he was doing that. But certain scholars would say, you know, he was negotiating between the warring tribes and blah, blah, blah. Like, we weren't really warring like that until they got here. See what I'm saying? So I talked about that. And then based on that video, someone who I was in the military with, I was in the Marines, he was like in boot camp, he was like slept to the right, like to the left of me. And he was asking me questions. He said, are the Moors and the traditional Native Americans one and the same? And that's what we was talking about, the so-called Indians. And now if you look at the Olmecs, you know, they got noses like us, lips like us, and those so-called Indians don't look nothing like that. But those so-called Indians, who have like the more Asian features, they're descendants of us and the Chinese, the Manchurian, the Japanese. Because I'm not sure if you know this, but that land bridge from Alaska to Asia, you know who Zhen during, like, I think it was the 4th dynasty, like 2500 BC or whatever. Well, anyway, he came down looking for his lost people, the so-called, you know, dark skin or black Chinese, but we know black means pale.
I have heard about there being dark-skinned Chinese people that they erased from history. Yeah,
but they weren't really. So anyway, because you know, all life comes from us, so everyone was dark-skinned, or swarthy, you see what I'm saying, or brown, right? So they always try to say these people disappeared and that people disappeared, and we can go into that too. But anyway, the Asians, or the Hu Zhen and his people, they inevitably met with our ancestors, the Olmecs, you know, big nose, big lips, right? And then there's even some Olmecs with the fezzes on, and you can clearly see a tassel hanging on. So that's why certain people look the way they look, but they're still mixed with Moors. They still got Moorish blood. That's why they're brown skinned. You know what I'm saying? But that's the image that they push, because one of the things, you know, the Willie Lynch. So Roger Williams founded Providence colony, 1638. The freaking Baptist church, 1636. Then Baptist church, 1638, and then, you know, we were fighting. 1712 Willie Lynch manual. Take the mind, leave the body. So what they did was they took Moors, right? They said, some of you are Indian, some of you are black. They told the Indians that they massacred millions of their ancestors, so now there's a little bit of them, to make up for the story that millions of blacks were taken over from Africa. When if you look at the history, these Europeans weren't in any type of political power to even do anything like that. And then in their version of history, they tell us they were warring with Britain, they were warring with Americans, and they were warring with other Europeans, and then their ships were being taken by the Moroccan Empire. So how they at war with everyone, literally everyone, but still they had, and then they were paying ransom to the Moorish Empire, and they were still able to bring millions over. And then there's a book, J.A. Rogers' book, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro. He talks about how the first slaves, which means Slavic, but the first people brought in bondage over here were Europeans. And then Michael Hoffman II has a book called They Were White and They Were Slaves, and it's all about how they were slaves. How they were in bondage. And then in the book Golden Age of the Moors, he talks about, because the Moorish Empire, we ran shit from the 14th to the 1700s, we brought millions of Europeans over here as slaves.
So when you say slaves, what kind of slaves are you talking about?
When I say slave, I'm talking about connotatively when people say slavery. But we know the word slave comes from Slavic, which is European. That's how the name came about, because they were the ones in bondage, so it just got attached to them. You know what I'm saying? But when we say we're slaves, we're saying we're descendants of Slavics, we're saying we're Europeans. So connotatively, I'm using slavery because that's what people use. But I'm making a distinction that I know it's not slavery. It's just, you know, kind of reach people where they are, and then you give them degrees of knowledge, like, yeah, it's called slavery, but it's called that for a reason, to denationalize you when this land ain't Czechoslovakia, so you can't be descendants of a slave and then claim land here. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Give them crumbs to make them hungry.
Yeah, and then you know, and then because, you know, if you give them everything at once, it's gonna be too much.
It's gonna be dismissed.
Yeah, and then, oh no, that's a lie. But if you know, read this book, you see what I'm saying? And that's how, you know, come You know, come see the truth.
And that's the hardest thing, because we don't read. We don't read.
Exactly.
I don't read as much as I should.
Yeah, me either. But that's where we have to, you know, take charge, because there's a saying, don't worry about those black people because they can't read, and then those who can won't. But that's also, you know, that's part of the European conquest. They put the pressure on us. We got to work their jobs to pay their rent when it's really our homeland. So we're working to pay a foreigner on our own homeland, so we're too busy. And then, you know, we hate ourselves and we hate our lives because we're busy working for someone else. And then when we do have time off, we just want to relax, drink, smoke, party.
Yeah, that's why it's
party
great.
the pain away. You see what I'm saying?
That's why it's great you're making these videos, because I know I wouldn't initially go and find books to read on my own, but when you give somebody something to think about.
When you tell someone, you give someone the context, you say, read this book and now think like this. You know what I mean? And then you come back and tell me like, do you see the same thing I see? What do you see? And then we grow like that. Like, I don't have all the fucking answers. You know what I mean? It's impossible.
That's why I find myself picking up books, and if I see something, I'll look at it. If I see an encyclopedia, I'm gonna go look up Moors now. Yeah,
because you have the context now. You see what I'm saying? That's why
that's why I'm sending so many things that I found to you. Yeah. Even though you probably most likely know these things.
It doesn't matter.
But I'm
the point is to share.
Yeah.
And then based on that, I can say, well, this is the way I'm thinking about that, and then you tell me how you're thinking about it. You know what I mean? But the thing when you're talking about reading, the issue is our black leaders and our Indian leaders aren't telling us what to read. They're just saying things so that they're the source of information, and then they have say over what you think and do. That's how it works. And then they're getting paid off by the corporate state.
And even, I mean, there's a big name that I could think of, but I won't mention it.
Yeah, no, I don't want to mention anyone's name. I just want the people to...
But, you know, people of influence have book clubs. And they have the knowledge, but they don't put out the right books to read. They'll give you some sad, sappy love story, or like,
just like in school,
some we've been through a rough time story that's fictional. But they won't give you real material to read, so you can really gain some knowledge.
They have Moorish fezzes in secret.
I know. Like I said, I'm not gonna mention any names, but I've seen some pictures that really upset me, because I'm like, if you knew, why you didn't share this information with your people?
Because they get paid by the state, so they get comfortable jobs, they get a comfortable house, and the whole thing is to protect Rome, protect the Europeans that they work for, rape their people, and they get a comfortable job. Because this situation that we're in is not fun. It's not comfortable. I'm laughing right now, but sometimes you gotta laugh at the pain. Like, this shit ain't fun. You know what I mean? So they're doing, they're selling their own people out for their own benefit. When the real issue is, don't do that. That's how we got in the position we got in the first place. Like, if you look up the Pequot and the Narragansett Wars, we separated from our main body and was like, oh no, some of us with the Europeans, some of us not. See what I'm saying? So we split. Europeans came in and then just conquered us. That's why NAACP, colored people, where colored in law means artificial, means fake. And then Bureau of Indian Affairs, under the Office of Indian Affairs, under the War Department, they split us into mine. That's the Willie Lynch.
Yeah.
And that was in 1712. That's not that far. You see what I'm saying? And then, so they put some of us on reservations, some of us in the ghettos. Same thing. And then they bring some of us to their Indian schools, some of us to the so-called black charter schools. They both have 501c3s.
So do you think that's like the major issue with there's so many groups of people, Native Americans, or
there's too many people. There's too many people not claiming their bloodline. Because when you say I'm a Moor, you choose your position. When you say you're Indian, you don't choose a position. When you say you're black, you don't choose a position. Because you got the black Comedics, you got the black RGB, whatever it's called. You got the black power, you got the black Christians. Then you got this Indian tribe, that Indian tribe. It's all divided.
So the so-called American Indians, when they're claiming our rights, our land, this and that,
they're not claiming our land.
They can't lawfully have anything because they're not claiming their true identity.
Exactly.
And even if they did, is that their true identity?
No, because remember, people are part and parcel, right? So the Chinese are from China, the Germans are from Germany. This is not India, so you can't be a native Chinese Indian. The land's not India. You can't be a Native American Indian. The land's not India.
Yeah, you let Europeans come over and say, "Oh, you're Indians."
Hold on, that's why they renamed the land. That's why they call it the United States now. Because it's really Morocco. So if they said, "Yeah, we run Morocco," and they're Europeans, there's no Morocco in Europe. What are you talking about? So they removed the name Morocco or Mexum or Maghreb Alaska. This we get Alaska, Maghreb Alaska, Morocco, the most extreme west, and look at Alaska.
To the west of Alaska.
No, well, if you look at the map, America, both continents, north and south, are the far west you can get. And then it's called the Maghreb Alaska, and then Alaska, Alaska is Alaska. You see what I'm saying? So they hide the name of the land so that the people don't claim the land. So when the Indians say, but all right, so we got to go to the definition of what an Indian is.
Okay.
Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. It says it's a race of men found in the United States. Now we have to break that down. What does race mean? Race means to shoot out, right? So we all shot out from the same Aboriginal families, the same dark-skinned people, right? So there's only one race. So race of men, right? So race, there's only one is human, so that's a false already.
Yes.
Right? The United States, Title 28, Chapter 6, Subchapter 176, Subsection 3002. The United States is a corporation. So can there be a race of men found in Domino's?
No.
Can there be a race of men found in McDonald's?
No.
So how can there be a race of men found in the United States?
It doesn't make sense.
This is why Indians, if you look up the history of the so-called Narragansett Indians, who are really Moors, they have a joint memorandum of understanding where they get 1,800 acres of their own land, and then the corporate state of Rhode Island's laws apply to them and their people. This is why they have to pay taxes, because they're paying their master.
Yeah. That never made sense to me, that
because it doesn't make sense taxes on their own homeland, right?
Yeah.
Because you can. That's why
if they're Native Indigenous American people,
but
how does someone else come and tell you?
Because they're not. They're saying that they can say whatever they want, but in law it says race of men found in the United States. That means you belong to the United States. Indian title, it's title ceded to the United States. So everything they own here in the United States, and then they administer it. It's not recognized as ownership.
Yeah.
So Indians get Indian title, blacks get a mortgage. Both are not recognized as ownership. The only real ownership is a allodial title. And that can only be drafted from a sovereign. And the nationals are the only sovereigns. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we don't know any of this, so we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So therefore all of our stuff gets abandoned.
So we're just sitting on everything.
They're sitting on gold. That's why Noble Drew Ali said, "Children, you are just plain rich." And then he said, "Children, you're home. The Europeans are not home. Their home is 3,000 miles away. And they got to take on some water. Because they're Europeans. They're not Americans." You see what I'm saying? And then Drew Ali said they won't even be able to take all the wealth with them. Because they can't. This is a land of milk and honey. You can't take everything. You see what I'm saying? So this is kind of like what people don't really, they don't think like that because they're not taught that. And then they're not point to the books to read. Books to read, Golden Age of the Moors by Ivan Van Sertima. They came before Columbus by the same person. When Rocks Cry Out by Horace Butler. Horace Butler. They Were White and They Were Slaves by Michael Hoffman II. Inquisition Reign of Fear by Toby Green. What else? J.A. Rogers, 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro. These black leaders and these Indians aren't going to say that. You see what I'm saying? And then you know there's a split between Indians and blacks, right? But if you look at the Hiawatha Wampum Belt, it has the five glyphs on it. And you got the 5-pointed green star on our flag, the American flag, right? And then they always talk about the 5 civilized tribes.
Yeah.
They're really the 5 titles of nobility: the Al, Ali, El, Bey, and Dey, right? 5 Moorish titles of nobility. And then you got the 5 civilized tribes. And then George Washington chopped down the cherry tree, and our flag is red.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then the middle of the Hiawatha Wampum Belt is a tree of peace. And then on the continental flag, you got the cypress tree, and then none of those flags were flown for a while. And he said, "I chopped down my father's cherry tree. The Iroquois Confederation fathered them into government,
so
into
like
Republican form of government."
Public underlying diss.
Yeah, it's not a secret. They hide it right under our nose. And then right on the one note, you got the Great Seal Pyramid, which is our seal, and you got the bird, which is also our seal, and it says 1, and it represents the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between us and the Europeans, and the Star Spangled Banner represents that peace and friendship, but they call that the American flag because they conquered us. You see what I'm saying? When really what was happening when we were bringing them into government, because remember we was at wars with them. We had thousands of years of wars with them. We had the Punic Wars, the Sicilian Wars, the Greco-Persian Wars, the Inquisitions, the Crusades, right? So 1492 we were expelled. Inquisitions happened around the 10th century, right? During the 1700s, we were still at war with the various European powers. So, and we were taking European ships, and we were seizing them. You see what I'm saying? So, in order to distinguish our friends, the colonists, right, from the other European powers, Treaty of Peace and Friendship was agreed to between the European sons who retaught our government and our Sultan Muhammad ibn Abdullah. This is where George Washington's letter comes in from 1789 when he was thanking him, right? So to distinguish our new friends between the Christian wars, the various other Christian nations that we were fighting with, they got the Star Spangled Banner. So okay, we see their flag, we recognize their flag. You see what I'm saying? That's really what it is. But people don't know that because they're not given that history at all.
Yeah.
Because in order for the Europeans to gain control here, they have to teach us we're black, we're Indian, we found America. They have to, you know, portray themselves as the great white God, the great white father.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So subconsciously we put them as, oh, they founded everything, they created everything.
Yeah.
And then they'll tell us, oh yeah, you know, we took Africans from Africa because we had superior firepower. But you read Golden Age of the Moors, it teaches you that we taught them, we created the first gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of like once you read it, it starts to unravel everything that they taught you, like that. And that's I read that within like the first 10 pages of that book. I was like, no fucking way.
Yeah.
But I'm not like, why don't they teach it? I know why they don't teach it.
Yeah.
Because then they lose power. Just like in the Bible, it says, you know, they have no power, at least what you give to them. They have nothing here because this ain't their land. So they got to make us think we're someone we're not so that they can control our lands.
So, again, I won't get into current events, but what do you think of the whole flag thing? And
burning the flag?
Not the burning of the flag, the pledging allegiance, and because I'm just now learning that song was written by a slave owner. The third verse
I heard
is very racist.
I heard that this I've seen the video from some so-called black dude, right? But from what I know about the pledge is they pledge allegiance to the American flag, which is the 5-pointed green star, red field, right? And then they pledge allegiance to the Republic. That's Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. There's nothing wrong with that because we created the Republic. See what I'm saying? They created the democracy to overthrow the Republic. So as far as pledging allegiance to the American flag, which is the 5-pointed green star, and the red field, that's the American flag. There's nothing wrong with that. Pledging allegiance to the Republic, which we created, the Iroquois Laws of Great Peace, ain't nothing wrong with that. Isonomy, equal rights and equal protections for all, regardless of race, creed, religion, in and at law. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just people think we're a democracy. We ain't a fucking democracy. So people's concepts and because what we're taught in school isn't the truth. There's some truth because you know you have to give people some truth, some hope, so that they keep going.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So they keep trucking along while we keep getting, you know what I'm saying? That's what it is. That's really what it is. And you can, you know, search this United States Training Manual 2000, and I have it in my book, and we can go over that right now. And it was issued from the War Department in November 1928, and it gives you the distinction of a democracy and a republic. And since this is my book, I'll just go over it right now.
Okay.
So people don't even know like this isn't a democracy, right? So yeah, U.S. Training Manual number 2000, TAC 25, published by the War Department, Washington, D.C., reveals the truth about democracy. So TM 2000, TAC 25, 118 to 120, democracy. A government of the masses. Authority derived through mass meetings or any other form of direct expression. Results in mobocracy. And in my book, I define what a mobocracy is.